So why don't we bring the July 19th, 2021 meeting of the Advisory Commission on Coastal Waters to order. Sorry, Tom Lochtefeld, did we just straighten out who's taking minutes?
Yeah, Rob's going to take the minutes.
Great, okay. And why don't we get to our first order of business, which is the approval of the minutes. Tom did those last week. Do we have a vote to approve them in a second?
Vote to approve or second, either one.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
That's a unanimous crowd, except for Lori. You seem not so excited about them, but I suppose you're ex officio and don't vote.
Not allowed, yeah, I'm just not allowed to vote.
You ever see a vote lacking, though, you could just throw your hand up to throw it over the top.
All right.
Yeah. All right, good. Well, those minutes pass. Thanks for the effort of people who did that. And I think I'll just jump into my chairman's report, which isn't so long, but it had a couple important items. And the first was an unfortunate item. I don't know if you all heard, but on July 10, this was the Saturday of the flotilla. So a couple Saturdays ago, a 63-year-old man died off Chupin Point, really almost off the Woodway Beach Club. And really sad event, obviously, as death is, but in the fact that it was not a very a rough day. There was actually a lot of police around because the flotilla had just happened, and Stamford police were there to from 8:30 to about 10 o'clock to see that through from nearby Cove Beach to Stamford Harbor. Darien police were out. There were a number of boats, but literally just about 45 minutes after that event passed by Chupin Point, these two gentlemen in a canoe came out, and I think I had heard from a passing boater that he thought he heard one of the policemen say that a big wake had upset the canoe. Hey, David, how are you? And a big wake had upset the canoe, and two men had gone in the water, and one made it to shore and the other did not. And I did hear from one of the police officers that there were PDFs on board, but they weren't on the people. So I heard that in 3 minutes, the emergency crews were on scene, and local life preservers at Woodway were administering CPR, but it was all to no avail. So that's really a tragic event, and particularly in the case that, as I understand it, it was a canoe that was out there. And a canoe on flat water is fine, but as we know, the sound usually has the potential either from boat wakes or just a little wind to get more than flat water. So perhaps an inappropriate boat and not wearing a life preserver has an outcome for events like that. So anyway, I thought that was, it's just a shame when we have events like that in our area. And it mirrored something off of Cove about a year and a half ago. A young man from Danbury died in a kayaking accident in May. Anyway, I think it just another instance of us needing to think that safety is important, and things like the safety flyer on the kayak rack is really a wise thing to do, and to try to get behind education efforts locally. Because I don't think people are stupid. I just think they don't know. And if they knew, if they're informed, they'd make better decisions about this. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So Bill, did he drown or did he die of a heart attack? What was
The news in the papers is that he drowned. So, I don't know what caused that. Maybe he just couldn't swim, or maybe he got panicked, or, just one gulp underwater, right? It can be pretty quick. So.
Water's still chilly for somebody, that's in it for a while.
Yeah, someone who's not used to it or not expecting it. I think it can be a big shock to go from, easy day in a canoe to all of a sudden being in the water. Yeah. Anyway, real shame. And again, I think it just is another reminder of vigilance or extra efforts on our part are all warranted. Let's see, and I guess I'll just next go to my larger item, which is, as you know, the strategic plan that we had all taken a look at and voted on and seemed to like as a group, was put in front of the Board of Selectmen on the 12th, last Monday. Had really quite a good discussion and review with them of the strategic plan. And I thought I'd just give you a little feedback from them. So I presented for about 20 minutes, and if anyone wants to see it, it's on channel 79 on YouTube. And then, you know, from the moment we started talking, the board was quite receptive to the idea of a strategic plan. And, you know, I just had a little excerpt here from the Article 2 of the town ordinances, which specify what the Board of how the Board of Selectmen are voted in and what they do. And I'll just read to you something that section 2.31 in the Board of Selectmen ordinances, that it specifies quarterly town agency meetings and reports. And then under Article B, it says the heads of town boards and commissions may also be invited to participate at these quarterly Board of Selectmen meetings to present their quarterly activity reports and an outline of their plans for the next 2 quarters. So that I was coming in and suggesting we have a strategic plan and that it have some elements that look forward and report to the Board of Selectmen sort of fits in sort of, you know, with the schema that's been outlined for the town governance to start with the Coastal Commission. So here's a couple comments, specific feedback from the Board of Selectmen on the meeting, just some of the highlights and sort of paraphrasing them. But Jamie, who was one of the 2 selectmen who was most vocal, basically said, I've got a pretty close verbatim, as an advisory board to the Board of Selectmen, each year is a new year. So to have fresh plans and goals and activities is a good idea. So she's seeing there's sort of a need to update where we all are, what we're all looking at, and to do that with them. She also thought it was very good to sync our, particularly our safety efforts with the 5 Mile River Commission. And she noted there's a lot of Darien boaters who keep their boats over in 5 Mile River, and we would therefore extend our reach there. And we've done that sort of informally, keeping liaison back and forth with the 5 Mile River Commission. But maybe we should, I do think we should up our game a bit. It would reach more people in particularly important matters. Monica McNally asked a lot about our water quality findings and also was interested in our channel survey and how that's been going. And I mentioned that there's a few high spots, and if anything's done in the Pear Tree Point renovation to the boat launch ramp and needing a dredge of any sort to be brought in there, it would be great to piggyback off that and get that high spot on the north side of the DBC docks taken care of, and anything else that's sort of between now and then we're feeling is a high spot. So I don't know how realistic all that is to happen soon, but Jamie thought that was a good point to keep connected with the renovation. Let's see, Sarah Newman had a lot of interest in our safety issues and urged us to be proactive there. So that was nice to see her pick that up. We talked about the incident off of Chopin, and that obviously got everyone's attention in a big way. I think David Martin had some of the perhaps most interesting comments on the presentation. Paraphrasing him, as I did with Jamie, is pretty close here. He said to maximize the value of the commission, he encouraged us to take more action, to bring more actionable ideas to the Board of Selectmen. And he repeatedly used the word action in a couple of the backs and forths we had. So he was pretty pointed about that. I thought it was a good comment. He mentioned, for example, on the turbidity findings that we've had for the last couple seasons that have been poor in 2 of our harbors, that maybe we should have promptly come to the Board of Selectmen and suggested action to discover what's causing that. He suggested maybe that's not too late. We should maybe still do that. I mentioned we had talked to a couple consultants, and somehow in that process money came up, and quite frankly, there was a receptive tone in their voices saying, look, if there's something that comes up with need, and they brought this up, if there's something that comes up that needs funding, bring it up to us and let's talk. So I think that was encouraging. If we've got some worthy causes or things we want to pursue, we were being told not to be shy. Let's see, lastly, David suggested that we work with the sewer commission where we can, where it hooks up with water quality. So I think that was generally a good piece of advice. So where we are left off of this, again, the Board of Selectmen approved of the idea of us having a periodic strategic plan, one that's refreshed every year, and one that has forward-looking parts. And those could be for projects or goals that have, a quarter by quarter time horizon, or even ones that go longer. We could talk to them about what we would like to append to the strategic plan as you've all seen it, that would indicate projects. So just as an example, when we did the safety flyer, if we have another idea for general safety ideas, throw that in an appendix as a category and maybe put some things we'll think about working on and deadlines by which we would achieve them, or bring them up with the Board of Selectmen, suggesting that they achieve them with some of the departments in the town. Again, fulfilling our mandate to advise them. And if they suggest we undertake the action and or get funding for it, then that could be another step. So I think where we are is to, by the break of the new year, take that strategic plan and just expand it a bit with what we'd like to do next year. And I don't think that's a big paper game. I think that's really just throwing on 2, 3, 4 pages of summaries of sort of general goals and maybe some specific projects. And that was sort of the gist of it. And it was a good engagement. And, the whole, I think, idea was to get ourselves closer to the Board of Selectmen and to have a mechanic through which we could discuss what we're doing in our plans and projects with them, and just have that be a tighter bond so that there'd be some more effective action coming out of the commission. So that was the nature of it. You can listen to it yourself, see how accurate my description is. But glad to answer any questions you might have on it right now, or discuss anything amongst us.
I got one question. It's kind of based on the storm too. So there was a huge amount of storm water that was getting into the sewer system, and particularly our Seagate Road. We had it bubbling out when it came down, and so the DPW. I mean, this does affect us, and they're trying to. What their plan is to prevent something like that happening when we have huge amounts of rain. They came down. They said, it's happening all over town, where you didn't think this stuff would happen, but I guess illegal connections, or maybe there's some cross sections of pipe that are getting together so that the sewage is bubbling up, which we had down here. So, that might be something that ties into the harbors and our quality. So maybe there is something to what that guy was saying, that Selectman was saying, that we ought to be tied in a little bit with, in particular, how they're going to handle, or what their feeling is, how to handle this in the future if we get big downpours like that.
So do we have, these are called CSOs, right? Combined sewer overflow. So that when the runoff gets too large, you're actually getting some sewage going into the.
Well, I don't think that's by design in Darien. Now, they have those at both Norwalk and Stanford treatment plants, but there's something, and he didn't explain to the guy that was down here how that's happening, other than possibly illegal. People are putting their storm drain stuff from their houses in there, or there's some pumps into it or whatever, but it was actually happening. And I've never seen it where it was actually going 6 or 8 inches out of the manhole covers of the sewage areas going down into Seagate. So, and he said that was happening in many places throughout the town. So I mean, it would be nice to understand, what, maybe it happened just because but how we're going to try to fix that so the harbors don't get so polluted. Obviously, when you're having big releases in Norwalk and Stanford, that's going to get into our area as well. But then some of these are coming right down out of our sewage lines.
Is there observable sewage that you could see, or is it just water shooting up out of there?
Yeah, it was water. I mean, you couldn't see matter. But it was coming out of the pipe, the manhead that said sewer. And so, yeah, how much of that was probably, most of it was probably, a majority of it was stormwater. But, it shouldn't be intermixed like that.
Yeah, I believe that over the last couple of years, the town has been actually working with Save the Sound, who was, kind of complaining that we had over a number of years, a series of issues like of leaks of sewer and stuff. And so the town and Public Works had been working to try to track those potential issues down and address them. And I don't know if these are new issues or what, but certainly I think Public Works has, I don't know if they're kind of how much aware of this recent issue they are, but certainly in the past, they have been trying to focus on these things. And
Yeah,
I think the town has spent a decent amount of money. Maybe they need to spend more, but I think the town has spent a decent amount of money over the last couple of years trying to rectify this stuff.
and I'll add to that when you probably saw, it came out an article about 6 or 8 months ago, where Save the Sound basically was going to sue us, town of Darien, if we didn't do something about it.
Yeah.
So when I talked to the DPW, they were very tight-lipped about it. They didn't want to share about what was going on. And that's not right either. It should be transparent. So maybe through us, as this organization, we can be more involved and kind of understand, well, what are you guys doing, other than paying off Save the Sound $70,000 in legal fees. So it'd be nice that they were a little more transparent, and maybe we could be the conduit to that. That's all.
The town is under a consent decree with Save the Sound to correct the problems that Save the Sound identified. And that got signed off, I think, in the fall of last year. But Bill, I think your point's good in that if we're lifting our finger to do some water quality work, to have it erased by, other departments or functions in the town without us knowing, there's something sort of doesn't make logical sense about that. We should at least be informed and understand it. And if there's anything from our perspective we can, help with in terms of, I honestly don't know, but
There is a sewer commission as well, is there not, that
Yeah,
Yes.
is appointed by the Board of Selectmen?
yes.
I'm sure that's a great one to be on, but maybe they'd, maybe they could be more disclosive than the Department of Public Works, since they report to, I would think, the Board of Selectmen.
That's analogous to our position. So it's sort of be colleague to colleague talking.
Yeah.
they have regular meetings and they are covered by Channel 79. So you can go back on the Vimeo archive and see what they're talking about, especially the next meeting. What might be very interesting.
Yeah, you bet.
Bill Wright, would you like to reach out to their commission head? I honestly don't know who it is.
Sure.
But on behalf of our commission and just simply try to get some
Okay.
disclosure so we understand what happened.
Okay.
Again, I think your question's really good, that if we're measuring water quality and something is happening in town, which is sending it southward, it'd be nice for us to at least get an explanation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Any other thoughts or comments on the strategic plan discussion? I really thought the hint that we shouldn't be shy about asking for money was particularly encouraging as we try to think of it.
Getting it's another one.
Getting
No,
it to anything.
I had a question for you related to that. In terms of asking for money and ways that the commission, that our commission might spend that money. Has the idea of us doing a fundraising effort of some kind ever come up? And is that something that you think might be useful, that we could pull something like that off? I mean, obviously COVID is a major consideration, but in some way, shape or form, either an event or some sort of getting involved with another event or something like that, is anything that's you think could be of interest?
I've never considered that, but the quick two things that come to mind is that Tom Bell, who is not directly on the commission, but ex officio, does a good fundraising job every 3 years, pulling in, I think, 2/3 of the money for the channel review, channel survey. And Tom, what is that, about $8,000 or $10,000 from each player? You're on mute, Tom.
Mute, sorry, wrong button. Yeah, it's about an $8,000 or $10,000 server every couple of years.
And then the only other thing I was thinking, Rob, is that when our channel did need dredging, the prior commissioner chairman here, Sandy McDonald, and Link Jewett raised a fair amount of money to have the town users of the channel, a bit larger boat owners, kick in monies. But in terms of, like, I think what you're talking about, sort of a general appeal, retail level, maybe I'm thinking, I don't know if that's ever been tried for a particular goal of the commission.
I'm not actually sure how that would work as being a branch of the town government. I'm not sure we'd have to check whether we're even allowed to do that.
Yeah, I think the money would just go back to the general fund. I think we'd have to say, what is
Yeah.
it specifically we're raising money for? Because even Park and Rec, if we go over budget, say in terms of generating, net income on programs, we don't get to keep that money and say, gee, I can take that extra 20,000 and buy an extra piece of playground equipment or something. It just goes to the town,
Yeah,
and we still have to operate within our budget.
The
We can
same
go
with
and ask for more money for things, and we do from time to time.
the same here with the harbor master raising money for the cost of moorings. It goes directly back to the town.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking if there was a specific initiative that the commission was interested in pursuing, and, the idea of potentially getting some funds from the town, would it also be helpful to think of taking matters in our own hands, if possible? I don't know, that just the idea came up when you mentioned that.
I know the last time the town paid for dredging, it only came up to the gut beside the boat club. And the boat club funded the swing around the north end of the club and over to the ramp, because the town wouldn't cover that.
And then Norotan picked up part of it too.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then there's a process for accepting gifts depending on the dollar amount. You can't just accept gifts without going through approvals to do so, depending on the dollar amount.
My guess, Rob, is that grants might provide a easier avenue. Usually requires some co-funding, but if you got the contribution from the town down low enough, Long Island Sound Future Fund grants are pretty strong these days. Those probably offer a better channel for projects that we might do.
Fair enough.
It's a good question, because, I mean, depending on what you're trying, if you're thinking, I'm not sure if you were thinking of the trash pickup machine, debris pickup.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of in the back of my mind, but I just think, I was just thinking in general, we're talking about trying to sort of give the commission some more teeth and, having some dollars behind your ideas. I just, I thought if there's a way to do that, then that might increase our efficacy.
I think you're quite right, and I think it's a real important question, and I guess it's probably one that's encountered in conversations with the selectmen, and then we've got more brain power and more avenues to figure it out with different departments and where it might all fit in. Let's see, the only other thing I had, if you're all okay with closing out the strategic plan discussion. The only thing I had were more sort of mechanics issues. The first is Bob Vilter has left the commission just recently. So we're down another person. Jim, it's good you came in, because if we had 2 openings, that wouldn't look good. And Jim, you're not official yet, right? You're still awaiting your...
I'm not official. I'm going to go and meet with the selectmen on Wednesday night this week.
Super. So
They're interviewing a bunch of volunteers for various commissions. So Wednesday, that should be the end of that. And then I don't know what the timing is on their approval, but I would think it's going to happen fairly quick.
Good. Okay. We'll look forward to welcoming you officially. And I hope we can do so in person. The official stance on the town now, Kate Bush informs me, is each commission can decide if they'd like to meet in person or not. So it is up to us. Now, last time we had a vote on this, and I'll say that there were several people who desired for the meetings to keep on going by Zoom. I haven't done the slick voting thing on Zoom for this occasion. I'm going to just say my personal feeling is it would be great to start meeting in person again. I just think the discussions are better, the experience is better. But I want to be sensitive to people. What I might suggest, we were basically all but 3 voices wanted to meet back in person last time we voted. I assume the people who voted yes probably have stuck to yes and maybe even feeling stronger about it. Would it be fair for me to ask if you have an objection that you would email me and we can discuss perhaps if you'd be comfortable being a person on Zoom with the meeting? I always can bring a computer and we can set a computer up. Is that a fair way to handle it? Or do you think that's being a little too pushed and we should all wait for a unanimous decision on we all go back?
I do have my commission meeting in person on Wednesday night. I made the decision that it would be nice to get people together. Again, we're meeting down at the Paddle Hut, which is one of my preferred venues for meetings. I did get an email from Kate that we requested you can have a split meeting. So you can have some people in person, you can have some people on a computer. Supposedly they're going to at some point set up a mechanism where you can have people on like a big screen and then whatever, but I don't think the town is quite there yet. But she did seem to say you can just sort of, anybody who's, joining virtually just has to be identified. It has to be cleared to the public, that that person is there and participating. All votes have to be roll call voice vote so that it's clear that, who's being called on and what their vote is. But you can apparently have somebody like propped up on a laptop. So you can join them by Zoom. That's what I was told today.
Yeah, the plan for doing hybrid meetings has been approved but not funded for 206 and 119.
Right.
And
Okay.
it needs to get funded, then it needs to be put in.
Well, and Dave, that is for television and cameras in those rooms, which would have a certain level of sophistication over one's personal laptop.
Yeah.
I think it'd be the idea like you have at work where you've got the big, screen and a camera that faces a conference table. So anybody sitting around it appears, and then anybody coming in from home and you all show up on the tiles.
Right.
So if you just brought your laptop and you had, me sitting there like staring on the laptop, like you could see me and I might be able to see a few of the people, but it's not the same thing that you get in a corporate setting where we have these big fancy setups. And I think that's
Right.
what they're going to move to for, albeit just for 2 rooms for now.
So what I'd like to do here is work on the default assumption that our next meeting, which would be in September, since we take an August month break, would be in person. And if anyone has an objection to that, would you send me an email and we can work out other arrangements? And quite frankly, if there's, like 4 people who object, that's a big chunk out of the commission, and maybe we should keep going with Zoom then. But last time it was 3, and I suspect with, vaccinations having gone around that number probably has gone down, but maybe I shouldn't assume that. So if it's okay, if we go on the default that September will be in person at a room to be determined. I like the idea of the paddle.
Paddle Hut is very nice.
Yeah, very nice. I'll try to get that. But again, anyone who is uncomfortable with that, please email me and we can have a good discussion about how how you might be accommodated. And I'm certainly fine to do Zoom, bring my computer and do Zoom. So, or if anyone has any other thoughts on that, please send me an email. But just with this meeting, I think I'll work on the default that we'll be meeting in September in person.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to my commission about, I just made the decision that we're gonna meet in person on Wednesday, but then have a kind of go forward discussion and feel, people are feeling, because, there's pros and cons to each. I think you're right, getting people together and having those interchanges is great. On the other hand, in the dead of winter in January, February, sometimes it's really nice not to have to go out on a 10-degree night. So I just kind of want to talk through those issues with people and say, do we alternate every other meeting, or does it depend on the agenda? I don't know. I think, it's like the return to work environment now that they're all telling us it would be really nice if you'd start showing up a few days a week. A lot of us are like, yeah, maybe later.
Well, and also we may want to periodically discuss this, if the variants and need for booster shots, the people's comfort level may not stay the same.
Right.
But I think at the very moment we seem, at least in the Northeast, in a window where it doesn't seem unreasonable to start meeting again. Listen, that's it for me. So why don't we keep going? And the next would be the Harbor Masters report. Mr. Bell.
Nothing really out of the ordinary to talk about this meeting. I think everything else in the harbor's been working pretty well.
Hey, Tom, if you talk to Jeff Eng or see him or whatever,
Yep.
I'm having a hard time getting hold of him about those 3 winter sticks that are still out there, just tracking those down.
Yeah, me too. I'm having a hard time getting hold of him, but I'll dog him down.
All right. And I don't know, Tom, if you're around, I'm around over the next 2 weeks. Be happy to organize a little outing to go out and do some sightseeing as to potential new mooring locations if you're interested.
Sure.
All right, I'll send you an email offline.
Okay.
I'll bring up something that Tom Lochtefeld, you brought this up to me. You were down at the water and sent a text of how many tree stumps you were seeing, and I think that was last Friday. And I'm curious, either Tom, did you get a lot of calls about that? Was there so much junk in the harbor that people were having issues?
Tom Bell, I'd have not received no calls about it.
Yeah, I will say I was out on Saturday and there was a lot of stuff floating around out there. I actually pulled some really large logs out and brought them up on the beach, but it was all a result of the Friday monsoon that we had. I have to assume just overwhelmed the outflows.
And I was going to mention that as well. I noticed a lot of what looked like cut firewood that
Yes,
had probably been stacked far away from the house near a stream, that when this water came up, all got pushed out towards the club and the sound. And I have to imagine that is a significant boating hazard. I mean, maybe all of that washes up, in the days and weeks afterwards, but I have to imagine a lot of it's still floating around out there, and maybe, close enough below the surface that you could really damage a boat if you hit it at high speed. I don't know if recommending that people stack their firewood farther away from a stream is going to get any traction, but anyway, probably
Yeah,
nothing
there's
you can do, but
A lot of stuff washed out. I had pictures on the boat ramp as well. And I know the town park and rec staff was aware of it, was going to clean that up. But the town garage where all our heavy equipment is stored on Ledge Road had about 4 feet of water. So
Wow.
the staff was scrambling Friday and that to get everything. As far as I know, all the equipment got moved and preserved, but all their furniture and files and a lot of that stuff was all a complete loss.
Well, the water sampling team, not me, but 3 other guys who've been doing it rather regularly for the water quality study are out there tomorrow morning So I'll report back to you on what the turbidity ratings are, how clear the water is. I would assume it's going to be just crap.
It looked like the Mississippi River to me when I went down there to check on my boat after that. Just
It was
awful.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was disgusting.
Now you had Bill Wright's comments and it's more than disgusting. Yeah. Anything to report from the clubs? What lead with Norotan Yacht Club, which Flip, is that you?
Yeah, I don't think there's that much specific to report. It seems like it's business as usual down there right now. Everything's in full swing. But I don't think there's anything sort of particularly remarkable.
And Dave, how about from the
Well,
DPC side?
as noted, we had a successful picnic yesterday, and talking to Bill Lowitz and some others down there, everybody seems to be happy. I didn't hear any complaints or aside, from a couple about, actually one of the big problems was one of the mirrors in the ladies' room has been hung too high. But that was really the only major complaint I heard. So things are kind of clicking along.
Is it a particularly, I haven't been very active in our local waters for the last month and a half. Is it a particularly busy season like it was a year ago? I don't sense, yeah, but.
Seems
According
normal
Bill
to me.
Lowitz, I'm sorry. According to Bill Lowitz, they're very busy. So,
Yeah, I think it seems normal from the Norotan point of view. In fact, maybe even a little slower in terms of some of the sailing activities on racing. And people are speculating that with vaccinations, people are now traveling on the weekends and not being around here. But who knows? It sort of seems normal to me.
Yeah, beach activity is definitely quiet. I get numbers most days, and our roving security guy will send numbers and he'll do counts in the parking lots at different times of day. And he's generally been reporting that activity. I mean, even some days he's like, it was like a perfect day. Like, where is everybody? So
They're on the Merritt
activities-
Parkway in 95 if you're looking for
I
them.
think that's right. So pear tree activity has been like, there was one day where he said that pear tree part was very quiet. The boat club was busier, and he'll kind of count both sides of the parking lot. But generally so far this summer, I would say based on compared to last year when everybody was here, activity at the beaches, they're not dead, but they're not like what we were seeing last year. I mean, I sit here and, look up and down Nearwater Lane, and last year all day long, every day of the week, I saw people who are clearly walking down to the beach, and it's just not like that this year.
Funny rhythms on everything. I don't think we have a shellfish report. Eric sent me a text rather, saying he thought he was installing some new equipment for a client up in, I think he said Bridgeport, and thought he might miss or be very late. So I think we don't have much to report there anyway. So let me open it up for other business. Should somebody have something else they'd like to bring up?
Look, weren't you arranging for us to meet with the new Jeff Bang down at the club?
Yeah, I was, but I was waiting. Tom, you had mentioned last time that you might be having some procedures, so I was waiting to the second half of July.
Okay.
Nothing else up? Everybody just waiting to get to August?
Yeah.
Well, this has been quicker than most. And I think we need to do a little work to secure a place to meet in September. And Tom Lochtefeld, perhaps you can pursue that
Sure.
with, I guess all the rooms work, but if that paddle club is open, that's a great spot.
Significant September. I think we can't use it after October. Once paddle season starts, then it's kept available for the paddle players to go in and out and do what they want. But I think you might still be okay in September.
And we also talked about having a barbecue of sorts in September, once we cleared Labor Day. And so that is something we're going to look into and get back to you all. Sometime in the couple weeks ahead, 2 or 3 weeks ahead. So we'll try to anyway, make that well past your summer plans so that we can maximize attendance, but still have some good weather. So we'll come back to you on that. So perhaps we're having a couple of meetings in person in September, which I just think would be great. And I have nothing else to say, but that I hope you have great Augusts and good boating seasons and whatever vacation plans you have.
You,
Thank you.
same
All right,
to you.
thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Good night, everybody.
Right.